Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of She Talks Business. I am super excited about this season because I feel like it is just such a privilege to get to introduce you to such a diverse group of people that I have been privileged enough to work with. And I can't wait to share all of their gifts and talents with you. And we're going to start this series off with a couple who work together in business. Yes, they are married and they work together. And I know that's not always easy to do. So let me introduce you to these two. I'm going to read their bios because they have pretty impressive bios. And I want to make sure I get it right because I could just introduce them off the cuff and say that Michelle Weger is probably one of the most creative people I know. She dreams things up in her sleep and solves problems while she's sleeping. And her husband, Nabil, I don't know, on the technical side, I don't think there's anything that he can't do. I always tell people that, we have ridiculously smart people that work on our team because not only do I work with them in a business advisory capacity, they actually provide their services to some of our clients. So I have two sides of this relationship, which is really awesome. So let me start with Michelle. The first time I called Michelle by her last name, I called her Michelle Weger. And Nabil was very quick to tell me it's Michelle Weger. It rhymes with eager. So Michelle Weger has never had a 9-to-5. Can you believe that? If you're listening to this young woman has never had a traditional 9-to-5 job. And wait till you hear something else about her. That's going to blow your mind. She is dedicated to her craft and has built a rapidly growing multi-six-figure website development and business process automation company. And it is rare for Michelle to do what Michelle does with code. But what's even more incredible, ridiculously incredible, is she has accomplished all of this while living with narcolepsy. The narcoleptic business owner has nullified her disability through her ability to automate anything, including her Keurig coffee maker, guys. Her husband has that all set up for her, so she doesn't have to think about it or ever fill the water up. How awesome is that? Imagine what this talented woman could do for you and your business. All right. And then Michelle, we got to talk about your husband because he's pretty awesome too, right? Yeah, so Nabil Ould-Brahim is one of the most sought after autonomy and automation systems experts in North America. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, in North America. From BlackBerry to QNX to Concept Project with Volkswagen and Maserati, Nabil has worked with some of the biggest companies in the world. After being headhunted by a 2-year stint on Apple's special project group, AKA I can't talk about that work, Nabil left to become a full-time entrepreneur. He leverages the same big picture thinking and deep technical knowledge that made him so successful in the corporate world to create custom automation systems for small to medium-sized businesses and startups. What a power couple you guys are. Thank you for saying yes to this conversation.
Our pleasure. That's a fantastic intro.
Yeah, I don't know who wrote those for you, but they're awesome. And it's all true, which is makes it even better. So Michelle, I want you to start by telling me a little, tell our listeners about your business because you are, by the time this airs, your business will be officially a decade old. This is not a baby, it's a decade old. So tell us about your business and what the idea was that you had when you first started and how that has evolved to where your business is today.
Very first idea was I wanted to create a directory of classes and activities, which now that exists, but at the time it didn't. The problem was I didn't know how to code and I didn't have very much money because I was 21 at this point. And so I worked hard, I saved money, I borrowed a bit from my parents, and I hired some people, and I was so excited. And then I was taken advantage of, and I had no money anymore, and I had nothing to show for it. And I'm not one to give up easily. So I started learning how to code online. And I found courses online where you could take classes from MIT, and I learned to code. And all of a sudden I realized I really like this and I'm good at it. And the original idea was no longer as exciting as the potential to be able to build things for other people and other businesses and help so many people grow their businesses. And so that's what I moved into, and that's what it's been for the last 10 years. And so what we do is business process automation and website development, which basically means all those repetitive, boring, mundane, creativity-less, logic-based tasks that every business owner does every day. We create automation that does it for you. So the computer can do all the repetitive stuff, and the business owner can do all the creative and human-based and emotion-based tasks, which really is why we're all in business after all. None of us are doing it to work on paperwork all day, are we?
Mm-mm. Now, I remember when you first said to me, if it's repeatable, it's automatable. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, right? And that's why I always joke about the Keurig situation, because, filling up your Keurig coffee maker is a repeatable activity, but you are the only person in the world that I know that has automated that process.
It's all those small things that take a minute or two every day. It feels like nothing. And then you do 1 year, it's hours. And then over the course of 10 years, you could have been on vacation for a week. And you're filling up water in a Keurig. And I love that example because it's a physical one. Everyone can imagine it, but businesses are full of equivalent things that could be automated. So like you said, anything repeatable is automatable.
So Nabil, you were climbing the corporate ladder. You were very successful in your last role at Apple. You were working on some really cool stuff, and you decided to leave that corporate environment, which many people would die for. Like, amazing opportunity, big international, globally recognized company, to join and partner in with your wife in her business. Talk to us a little bit about what you saw in terms of potential for the business and potential for your life when you made that decision to actually give up your corporate career to do this work in partnership with Michelle.
I'd be delighted to. So a lot of people that were in my shoes and that still are in that corporate world, you're kind of working like a 9 to 5. If you're in high tech, you're working more than a 9 to 5 if you want to move forwards. And I was kind of leading 2 different projects between Germany and California. So I would wake up early to kind of deal with Germany. I would take my break in the middle of the day, and then I would work late to continue into the California day. And I would be traveling all the time. It was fantastic. It was fun. And then I was looking at it, and I just didn't seem like a path that I could continue long term. Yes, it was very successful, but it was very challenging to make like long-term relationships. It was challenging to be told to relocate all the time, but when you make kind of like the calculations to relocate, it's not really viable for you. And so kind of explored my options, and I saw what Michelle was doing, and I was like, oh man, that's fantastic. I would get the opportunity to be far more client facing. It's much more of an individual role instead of working with really large corporations. I get to see real people's faces. I get to make a real meaningful impact in my community, in the business world around me. And I get to do it with the person that I love. And we get to have a fantastic time, and we can do it anywhere around the world. So I decided to make the jump. And that was an entire complicated endeavor that ended up working out fantastically.
So, guys, talk to me a little bit about what you love doing in your business. So, Michelle, what is your favorite type of work to work on? When you think about your ideal client and the work that you do, what is it that what jazzes you the most?
My absolute favorite are the in-person strategy sessions, because going into them, I know for sure it's someone that we're going to have a good day with, and that there will absolutely be things that we're going to uncover that are going to change everything for them on the business side, and by proxy, the personal side. So those days are always unique. They're always different. I'm sure it's the same with the strategy days that you do. because it really depends on the business owner. There's no script. There's no, we're going to do this, then this checklist. It's off the cuff. It's inspiring. And the results that come of it are ideas that are going to either drastically increase someone's bottom line or find efficiencies that'll make it so that, that role they've been struggling to hire for 6 months, all of a sudden, well, that can be tweaked in these ways. And now you don't have to worry about that anymore. Or they can start to take time off for the first time ever. Those are the things that make me really excited. And it's what I love because it's really what changes people's lives. And that's what we're in this for at the end of the day. I think most business owners are.
Nabil, what about you? What's your favorite part? I know you like the in-person interactions too, but like what else in the business besides your strategy days do you really enjoy doing?
So after the strategy days comes a ton of work in order to plan and actually make the entire thing work. And I like at the end, once you flip the switch to turn it on and it starts working and you've already tested it, you've gone through all that rigmarole. And about 6 months later, you message you see how things are going with the client. And they're like, hey, I'm having a good time. I'm way less overwhelmed. This is awesome. Thank you so much. That's my favorite part. That's literally the flipping of the switch, waiting 6 months and seeing how it goes. That's what I love.
So you love the outcome, the results that people get from doing the work. So talk to me about some of the misconceptions around automation, because I think that when small business owners think about automation, their thinking is limited. I think they think about automation in terms of, oh, I can automate my autoresponder for my newsletter, right? Like, so what are, Michelle, 2 or 3 things that business owners should be considering as part of their automation process that they haven't thought of?
I love this question. So I think the biggest misconception is that it's robotic and not personalized. And that is true for bad automation. Bad automation is very robotic. Great automation, however, is the exact opposite. It's more hyper-personalized than you could ever be as a human because you'll never have enough time. So an example of this, and if anyone's listening, pet food business, this is my fantasy to actually set this up for somebody. But Lisa, we know how much you love your dogs. We have 2 Great Danes. They're everything. And we buy food for them. Well, imagine if you bought food and on the checkout, one of the questions was, what's your dog's name? What's their age? And you could fill in that form because what dog owner doesn't like bragging about their dogs, right? And then when you got the thank you email, the receipt, it came and it said, we hope Maximus enjoys the food. And then when it was a few months later and time to reorder, what if the email said, senior dog nutrition really matters? As the owner of Maximus, I'm sure you know that at 12 years old, proper nutrition is everything. Here are some products we think that would really make a difference for Max. That's incredible. And it's all from 2 tiny pieces of information, because if the age group had been puppy, it would be a different email. If it had been a middle-aged dog, a different email. And it's all automatic. The same thing can be done with children, right? What a baby versus a toddler versus a school-age kid or a teenager needs is completely different. Yet it's quite predictable between others in the same age group. So that's the type of automation that I think is incredible and heavily personalized. And who would have time to write those emails one by one normally? No one, right? Mm-hmm. That's what true great automation is like, and where I think business owners have incredible opportunity to be able to implement things like that, that'll increase their bottom line and create more loyalty from their customers.
Yeah, in my new book written with Alan Weiss, one of the things that we talk about, hey, there's that book. One of the things that we talk about is logic makes you think, emotion makes you act. And so when I hear you say what you're saying, it reminds, so I was buying my dog food from a very expensive raw food company in the United States. And my new puppy didn't like the food. So I found a new provider, and we get the food from the new provider. And the very first box of food that I get, they sent treats. They sent all kinds of fun stuff for the dogs. And so when I put the food down for Faith to eat, she devoured it. She had never devoured food before in her puppy life. And she was like so happy with this food. So I sent the company an email and I thanked them for sending the little treats. And I let them know how much that, my puppy liked the food. And they responded back and they said, oh, what kind of dogs do you have? What are their names? Send me some pictures. That personalization actually endears you to the business. And so I think what you're saying is really, really smart. When you can personalize your automation beyond the dear first name, you can actually really positively impact the relationship that you have with your clients.
Yeah, you end up with happier customers and you're making more money. That's the ultimate win-win.
Absolutely. It's funny because the company that I used to buy the dog food from, it's a company by the name of Raw Wild, and they are rated as one of the top dog foods out there that you can buy from a raw perspective. And I received my order one day and the food was not 100% frozen. And so I emailed them because I was concerned that my food was not 100% frozen. And the way that one of the owners responded to me was a little bit not very customer service friendly. And I replied and said, as a customer, what I would have appreciated if you had said was, and then I wrote it literally the way he should have acknowledged my concern. And I went on and gave them some feedback that, if when you're shipping long distance, food arrives and it's partially defrosted and it is safe to put it in the freezer, because as long as it's still cold, it is actually safe to put it in the freezer. I said, you should have a note in your container that says, hey, due to shipping, you may find a few of these packages are not 100% frozen. They're partially frozen. We want you to know it is safe to put these in the freezer. You don't have to worry about your dog. Here's a link to resources online. Like, I gave them all this feedback. And one of the partners replied and thanked me. He said he's an attorney. And he said, I recognize, because we bill by the minute, that you've given us a lot of value from your time. But you know what? They never implemented. As I continued to buy from them over the course of the last year, they didn't implement any of the ideas. And then I find this other company and they're the exact opposite, right? They want to bring you close, warm, fuzzy. They want to see your dogs. So yeah, anyways, you got me off on a tangent talking about dogs.
Well, those are our favorite topics, right? Business and dogs.
That's right. So Nabil, I have a question for you. When it comes to automation and website development, you are an incredibly skilled individual, but there's a lot of kids in the basement who didn't study code at MIT like your wife, and they're basically hack coders, like they hack it together, and they can literally destabilize and put a small business's website and infrastructure at risk in a couple of keystrokes, and that website can be gone if they don't know what they're doing. So what advice do you have for our listeners right now who might be looking for website help on Fiverr, and they might be looking for the cheapest option, so that they actually know how to do proper due diligence when it comes to hiring somebody? Because I look at your website, and to me, your website is your shopping center on the World Wide Web. And you wouldn't give the keys to a retail store in one of the biggest malls in the world to some guy you just met who works out of his mom's basement. So why do people do that when it comes to their website, and what should they do?
That's a really, really good question. In fact, we have written an article entirely about how much should a website cost and kind of what you're looking out for. And it's a really, really broad range. A website could be from, like you said, somebody in their basement for like under $500 all the way up to like, I don't know, you could spend over 50K, over 100K. And so it really depends on, like, we could say, like, the season that your business is in order to relate it back. If you're just brand new, starting out, you're kind of figuring out what your customers like, what they're doing, it really doesn't make sense to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on a site. You could just jump on to one of the quick providers that can get you something quick and dirty, or spend like the least amount of money on Fiverr, because it's going to change and you haven't really figured out what you want. As your business starts to grow and you start to move up the ladder, the cost of your business, the cost of your website is going to increase. You're going to want more features. You're going to want more, you're going to want it to sell for you more. So you're really going to spend a lot more time on the copy. You're really going to want to try to figure out, how do I like optimize this for search engines? How do I make it better for SEO? How do I actually track? How do I create a funnel for people to guide them through to a purchase? How do I educate them? There's all these other things that come into play as your business gets bigger. And if you're looking to move into e-commerce, you can go for like a quick provider that can help you off the ground. And then later on, you might want something more personalized that can actually give those automated personalizations that other providers can't have. So it really depends where you are, but the more you want from your website, the more it's going to cost. And ideally, it should bring you more money than it costs. And so if you've hit that price point, then you're golden. If you're bringing in more leads and you're closing more sales because of your website than it tangibly costs, then you're really, really good. And you can start looking at potentially making that better and continuing it further.
So I read something many, many years ago that said you should be willing to invest 1 to 2 months worth of your desired revenue into the build of a website that should last you up to 3 years. So let's just break that down. Let's say you want to do $500,000 a year in business. $500,000 a year for somebody divided by 12 is $41,000 a month. So $41,000 a month, let's just say you use 1 month and you go $42,000 for your website. 42,000 divided by 3 years of revenue, 1.5 million percentage is 2.8%. So think about that. If you're listening here and you're cheaping out on your website, if you're not prepared to invest 2.8% in the next 3 years of your business, then do you really deserve to get the results that you want over the next 3 years? I think sometimes people underinvest and they don't get to where they want to go as quickly as they could because they underinvested. So I'm going to switch the conversation now and I'm going to talk to you, Michelle. Let's talk about the timing of investing in help, because your business has grown significantly since you and I started working together 5 years ago. So can you just maybe share with the audience where you were at in your business and why you decided to courageously invest? And I think you were investing like probably more than 10% of what your business was earning at the time in coaching or business advisement way back then, and what your thoughts are in investing before you're ready.
Yeah, you nailed it, Lisa. So when I decided to invest in working with you, I had not worked with a coach before. I decided that if I was going to take that leap and work with an expert, I wanted someone who was truly many steps ahead of me, not 1 or 2. And the ones that were 1 or 2 steps ahead, their price point was great. It was very reasonable. It was a fraction of the cost of what you were. But you were also 10 steps ahead of any of them. And so I've always been one to invest in what I want because I know I'll do the work. And at the time, it was, the strategy day, which is where we started, was pretty much as I made an entire month that month. And I remember at that day saying, I also want to do another program that you had, but I need to increase my sales for the next month or else I'm not going to be able to pay for this. And when we were there, one of the things we talked about was a pitch that I was working on for somebody. And you helped me work on it. And I closed that deal afterwards and made just as much as I had invested in working with you. And I had never closed anything for that price point, not even close before. And it was because I didn't know how to sell it. I didn't know how to explain the value. And I was putting together these technical lists of I'm going to do this and this and this. And it was all true. But for a non-techie, it made no sense. So it just was this overwhelming pile of information I was throwing at them saying, this is an incredible price and it's going to change your life. And this is what you get. And it was just alphabet soup to them. So of course people weren't jumping on it. And so in that one day, you gave me the beginning tools of how to actually frame things in a way that your buyer understands, that makes sense and that matters to them, which then makes it easier for them to buy, which means you give them the value and they're happy. And that's really what you did for me as well, is I took the leap, I made this investment, and I mean, I want to say pretty much overnight, but it was within that first month, revenues changed dramatically. And we were doing the math before this, and it's about 15 times higher, the yearly revenue I have now compared to what I had in that year before we started working together. And it's been, 5 years, I think?
So you have 15x your revenue over the last 5 years. That's pretty amazing. But I want to, I also want to, for our listeners, coaching is not the magic pill that is going to make you 15x your revenue. Okay. You can work with a business advisor and your revenues can go down. It depends on you and your willingness to do the work. I remember us doing that strategy session, Michelle, and was it in November or December? December, because it was around your birthday, right, Nabil?
Correct.
So we did that strategy session, and that strategy session was supposed to be for, I think, the next year or the next 6 months. And I think within 30 days, you had done everything that we discussed doing. And you were like back, okay, now what? I did it all and it worked. So the follow along to that is, if you're serious about making significant changes in your business in the upcoming year, you need to be serious about doing things that are uncomfortable. Were you uncomfortable, Michelle, at any time?
Of course. I was pretty much constantly uncomfortable. You made me do so many things that I felt were scary, or that, well, what if it goes wrong? Or what if I offend them? Or what if? But it didn't matter because I had to do it to be able to grow both as a person and the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think it was like a week later, you sent your husband to one of my workshops.
I did.
So Nabil, how did you feel about being, sent off? You were so professional and dressed in a suit with a tie. And how did you feel about being sent to your wife's new business friend forever, her new BFF? How did you feel about being sent out to this workshop? Because, there's a lot of, I'm going to guess that there are people listening that have spouses that are and are not supportive in business.
So I'd like to say that I was very, very supportive. I remember Michelle had just gone to your MMM event. I believe it was November. And she came out of it and she was like, I need to coach with Lisa. And I was like, sounds good. How much? And she told me the amount. And I was like, okay, I think you can make it. And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, I think you can. We will manage. It sounds like a worthwhile investment. And then when she came out of that strategy session, I was kind of sold on the Lisa Larter. So when she was like, you should take Lisa's leadership course, it'll help you out a lot. And I'm like, finally, I've been looking for a leadership course for like the longest time. It's very, very challenging to get these courses at like a corporate role. And I remember coming into your course and you were like, how old are you? And my first answer was, that's not a question I'm willing to entertain. And so it was okay,
wait a minute. That sounds like I just said, how old are you? It was his birthday, the day that he came to the workshop. And so it was like, happy birthday. How old are you? Like, it was more of a, how old, what, it's your birthday. What age did you turn today? And I had shut down.
Oh yeah. In hindsight, I felt really bad, but the context around that was I found in my corporate life, I really had to hide how old I was because that would be a huge limiting barrier to opportunities. And so I was always able to get into opportunities that historically you wouldn't be able to get just by coming across as though I was several years older. And so in that one moment, like all my guards went up and then you were like, you gave me that look and I was like, oh, that was a bad move. This is why I'm here.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it was
Yeah.
funny.
Age
was
was
really
one
funny.
of those factors that you helped us look at differently, because I too didn't share my age. It's one of those things Nabil and I had in common. And it was because we were young. We're further ahead on average than our peers of the same age. But the people we were interacting with at that level were typically 10 plus years older than us. And so anytime you'd mention your age, like, oh, you're a baby, you're so little, aw. And so we just wouldn't talk about it. And it was you who said, you need to talk about it. It's one of the things that makes you different. And it means you're bringing a different perspective to the table. And smart, capable business owners want a different perspective. And we started talking about it, and you were right.
It's
Yeah,
true. It was a
absolutely.
huge paradigm shift when I became an entrepreneur and left the corporate life, that it was now an asset and not like a liability.
Well, you're both old now anyways. I celebrated your dirty 30s with you. So you're not that old. I'm kidding. So let's talk about what it's been like for the two of you to work together in this business and coach together in this business. What
On
has
a good-
that experience been like?
On a good day or a bad day? I think it's, especially coaching together, it would have been extremely difficult, I think, to work together without coaching together, because it forces you to sit down many times a year or every 2 weeks in our case, and make sure that at least that hour you would have to be 100% on the same page to figure out the same plan. And it keeps us aligned, because as we heard earlier, Nabil's much more the implementer and I'm much more the planner. And so in our day-to-day parts of the business, we're not actually working hand in hand in the same way. Oh, and it helped us to work through some of the fears and differences, because we're not the same people, Nabil and I.
No, but you have both been very willing to have, rich conversations in support of each other. I mean, it's always been clear to me that the number one priority in all of this is your relationship before the business. And I think that's a distinction that people need to think about if they're listening. If you want to be in business with your spouse, you have to remember you have a work hat, but you have a relationship with this person that it precedes the work hat.
Yeah, I will say it started off incredibly challenging. When I left Apple and I joined Michelle, it was I had a pedigree of corporate experience, and being an entrepreneur is anything but that. So it was very, very challenging to start off with. But Michelle was very, very good at guiding me and working out how we could better work together. And coaching with you and helping us through the business objectives really gave us kind of like the yearn for the sea, so that we could build the best boat possible, being our business. So it was very challenging, but I feel like it's significantly more worthwhile. Before we were together, we were both working as a couple to further our lives collectively, but in our individual day-to-days in our businesses, we were both working to completely different goals. So like I would have all my corporate objectives, Michelle would have all her entrepreneurial objectives. And now it's significantly simpler and has simplified our lives, because now my objectives are the same as Michelle's objectives, both in business and in personal. And so it's really helped kind of unify that flow, so that when we're both rowing together, it's in the same direction at all times. So it's really helped kind of accelerate our enjoyment of life and our business.
Yeah, it's awesome. You guys have made some big changes, including the home that you're in right now, right? Your business has allowed you to do a lot of things that probably weren't completely imaginable 5 years ago, which is just makes me super happy to see everything that has happened for you and that you have created in your business. So I have one last question that I would love for you to answer, which is, what advice do you have for someone who's listening right now who would like to 15x the size of their business and is afraid to take the first step? Nabil, let's start with you.
Oh, so if you're an existing business owner and you want to 15x your business, that's just an improvement. Just expect, you probably already know it's going to be a significant amount of work. What you probably don't know is you often are way too close to the problem and all you're seeing is the trees over the forest. And so what really we found was super useful while working with you is you really helped kind of pull us out from that and allowed us to get like a 10,000 foot view. And what I always found challenging is I'm really, really good at like the task execution. I can just power through things and get it done. But if I'm not working on the most effective tasks, then I could be spinning my wheels and I wouldn't even know. And so you were really good at breaking out what are our end objectives of 15xing our business and then working back the baby steps to get there. So it was really, really tangible and clear of like, if I hit this milestone and I hit this next milestone and I hit the next milestone. And I believe we read a book together in Thought Readers that had mentioned if you're 60% effective at meeting your objectives, you end up actually meeting them completely anyway. You end up meeting your end targets. So you really don't have to be perfect and you just need to get it out there. It's very much like the Facebook mentality of like done is better than perfect. You just got to go get it out there, start making those first baby steps, and you're going to iterate and you're going to change them. You're going to fix them. You're going to learn more from your customers. You just need to take that first step.
Michelle, I'd love for you to answer the question too, but one of the things I'd like you to talk about is finding an advisor that has the right style for your needs. Because I remember you saying to me at the very, very beginning, I need a football coach, not a cheerleader. And I think that, you know, I can be a cheerleader at times, but my tendency is to be more of a football coach. My tendency is to be really directed in your face, and that's not for everybody. So I'd love for you to talk about that, because I think for people who are listening that are thinking about, I want to get some help, how do they figure out what is the right thing for them? What advice do you have?
I love that question. And I think part of it's knowing yourself. Are you the type of person that when you're feeling friction, you're feeling stress, and you are holding yourself back or scared of doing the thing? And I'll use a tangible example. Mine was video. I was so uncomfortable being on video. Something that was being recorded like this, I would have been anxious for 2 weeks in advance. And you knew that. And so you pushed me to make a video every single day. The original plan was for 360 days. Well, it's supposed to be 365, but the first 5 days, I couldn't even get myself to do it. And until the goal was when it wasn't scary anymore. And I think I did it for 2 months probably. And at that point, I could take out a phone anywhere, anytime, talk about any topic off the cuff because I was comfortable. But you knew me well enough to know that you could push me to do it. And every day in those early days, did you make your video yet? Where's your video? Send me your video. And that's what I needed. But there would be someone else who they would need someone to be more emotionally supporting them every day. Like, okay, let's talk about the insecurities and be very cuddly about it. Which if I'd had that, I would have never made any videos because I'd be like, yes, let's cuddle and not make videos instead. And I know that about myself. I know that if I'm given the chance to have that warm, soft space, it's not going to get me to do the thing.
Right.
Other people, however, they need that to build the confidence to do the thing. So I think the first step is knowing who you are and what does motivate you at the end of the day. And then finding someone who matches that style. And also, I said it earlier, but I really believe it's someone who is many steps ahead of you in the area you want to get coaching, get help with, not just one or two. And the final part is someone who's constantly improving themselves as well, because this business is 15 times bigger than when we started it, and we're still working with you because you are always continuing to build your skill set and knowledge. And so you're continuing to stay ahead of us, which is something I admire and something that appeals to me. But that's not the case for all coaches.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it's important that I think people need to recognize that change doesn't happen by doing the same thing over and over again. Change happens when you are willing to put yourself into uncomfortable situations and learn how to do whatever the thing is and grow. And if we're not all doing that on a regular basis, we stay the same. And if we stay the same, we are going to be surpassed by other people in terms of business growth, because there's always somebody else out there who's hungrier and trying to learn more than what you already know. And so I think that what you said is really smart, especially, the being many steps ahead in terms of business expertise. I've seen people, I've been doing this a long time now. I think I started advising people in 2008. So it's been, next year, it'll be 15 years that I've been, helping people with business and marketing advice. And I have seen people that were at the same level almost 15 years ago in terms of the startup stage of their business. And I've watched one person basically oscillate in the exact same spot, and another person, speed past them and, build this giant business and sell the business and start another business. And it's because they both chose to work with different people. And the person who's pretty much stayed the same chose to work with a business coach who was maybe a step ahead. And that person, because they're only a step ahead, can't give you the quantum leap that you're looking for because they haven't experienced it yet themselves. And so I think the question that people need to ask themselves is, are you looking for incremental growth, a little tiny baby step each year, or are you looking for a quantum leap? If you're looking to 15x the size of your business, it's not going to happen if you are doing business with somebody who is generating $10,000 a year more than you are. It's not going to happen if they don't have the experience and the skills in their toolbox that you need to grow your business. So it's really, really smart.
I 100% agree. I think the best foresight you could have is somebody else's hindsight. And there's no better than having someone who's further ahead. And if I could add on to kind of Michelle's question of how do you pick an effective coach or strategist, we call you a strategist. And I would say when we have meetings with you, Lisa, and we kind of go through our days, we get two outcomes. We get a long-term objective that we need to meet, whether it's a KPI or revenue goal, or just like a general business goal that we need to accomplish. And those are like far yearning down, like this is what I'm going to work on this quarter, this year, in the next 3 quarters. And then you also give us like individual tasks that like we need to get done this week or within the next 2 weeks. They're more like tangible. And I find when I speak to my other entrepreneurial friends, sometimes they work with a coach or a strategist that doesn't give them anything tangible. It's all like road, what you're going to be in 10 years and things like that. And it's all there, don't worry about it. Whereas I personally need the individual actionable steps. And so that's, if you're similar to me, where you like to implement and you want to know something, I would look for a strategist or a coach that's able to give you both of those things.
Wow, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate you saying that. So for our listeners, I want to just explain what that is. The reason that I always try to get people to do things right away is because quick wins allow you to build momentum, and they allow you to stay motivated, to stay the course, to achieve the big goal. If you leave with a big goal, but you don't know what the first step is, then you'll get stuck in analysis paralysis trying to figure out what the heck do I do first. And so when you break it down and you give people some immediate action that they can take, then you actually get them on the journey versus thinking about the journey. So it's like the difference between saying, I want to go to Disney, and getting in the car and driving the first hour to get to Disney, right? And so I think that's, not just about me as a coach, but as anyone who is listening, if you're looking at your big goals, the faster you can take a step towards the goal, the more likely you are to achieve the goal. Because if you don't take the first step, it's going to be, the longer you wait, the harder it is to ever operationalize the goal. So thanks, Nabil. I appreciate you saying that, because it's one of those things that I just do intuitively without really even thinking about.
You do it all the time. You even have a very common saying, and I forget where you get it from, that the distance there's like a distance between your goals and where you are right now, and there's a lot of tension between that, and the
Yes.
easiest way is to either let go of your goals or to bring up where you are closer.
Yes.
So yeah, the first steps really, really matter, but also knowing where you're going to go down really, really matters. So
Yeah.
you need to have a combination of both. Otherwise, you are spinning your wheels, and in 10 years, you might be in the exact same spot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been a great conversation. I want to thank you both for, first of all, talking about your gifts and talents and talking about the things that business owners should know about automation. I love your animal example, and I know you're passionate about working with not animal owned companies, but you love working in the animal industry. So one of the things that we didn't talk about is you have a championship Great Dane, and Nabil, you are like quite the fancy dog show handler thingy. I don't even know what that's called.
Yeah, yet another one of those things that was really scary and outside our skill set. We'd never been to a dog show before the first one that Nabil took Quinn to compete in. But it's,
Sure.
when you build confidence with those continuous quick wins, like you mentioned before, it does build momentum. But I find it also builds confidence in you as a person. You're like, why wouldn't I be able to do that?
Yeah. And we also got
Yeah.
a coach and trainer to help me get to that point. So there's a lot of work involved every single week to tweak and hone. And it wasn't everything all at once. It was little baby steps. And within under a year, we were able to get a lot of championship points on our Packstone Quinn.
Yes. I think my favorite video is when you showed her the first time and you won and you didn't know that you won. It was just so adorable.
I had no clue. So if you don't know anything about dog shows, what happens is you're looking for the best dog for breeding purposes to continue that line. And so I show up to this dog show. It's the first one ever. It's a match. We compete. We do the things. I show Quinn off to see like her body and everything. And then the judge tells me, go stand over there. And I had no idea that it was first place. I just went and I stood over there. And then they're like, sir, you need to be in front of the number one. And I stood in front of the number one. And I'm like, okay, like, well, I don't know what's next. And then like, you won. And I was like, what? What did I win?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a picture of that moment. The look on his face. He's like going to hug Quinn. Oh, it was so cute.
Yeah, it was awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again for sharing everything. And I think, talking about showing your dog is a really great way to wrap this up, because it's really, really wonderful to own a business, but you also need to have passions and hobbies outside of your business that keep you energized and experiencing joy in your life. And so thank you for, showing that you guys can handle both. 15x your business and double your pack size and start winning awards. It's awesome. I love it. All right. Thank you for listening, everyone. I hope you got value from this. If you're looking to find Michelle and Nabil, you can find them at venturecreative.com. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, it's been a while since somebody's given us an Apple review. Get on your iPhone, because I know that if you're listening to Apple, you're not using an Android. So get on your iPhone and leave me a review. That would make my day. Thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll see you next week with another episode of She Talks Business.